Hello everyone and welcome to another Live with Prima tutorial. I'm Miranda Edney with you today and we're going to be creating some ornaments using the ever beautiful Sweet Peppermint collection by Prima and Frank Garcia. It's a super versatile line for Christmas. You can go neutral tones, classic tones, traditional, you name it. You got it in the paper line. So I'm using an older item from Prima, the Julie Nutting wooden ornaments, and they are super beautiful. You're going to see a difference between the ones I used in the picture and the ones I'm showing you on the tutorial. It's the same techniques, everything's the same. I'm just pretty much using what I have on hand. So instead of a star, it'll be a heart, and instead of just a plain circle, I'm going to be using that oval one you see there. And it comes with wings, which is super cool. You can do so many things to these. I decide to cut the dolls out of the center so I can make just my own, my own spin on it. I love the Julie Nutting dolls, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't suit my Christmas decor. So I just drew a line there where I need to cut, and I am cutting from the back and the front, and it only takes a few passes on each side to get through. You can see there what it looks like when you get through. So then I'm just repeating the same thing on the bottom, and I just used a regular number 2 pencil just to draw a, freehand draw my line there. It doesn't have to be perfect, and then you can just erase, but we're going to gesso over it anyway, so it doesn't even matter. I'm not using the Prima cutting tool because mine, I need to change the blade on, and I was being lazy. So that is why I'm using a different one. So I keep the heads because you can totally use that on another project, so I kept that out to the side. I just used the Prima Distress tool to go in there and sand the edges where you cut, just to make sure everything's nice and smooth and even, and there's no raised areas to prep before we gesso. Okay, so I do the same thing to the heart one, and that's what you're left with at the end. And I'm going to take the heavy gesso from the Art Basics line, which I love so much, and I am going to just go around and paint my entire wings, the ornaments, everything. I think I only showed maybe 2 of the wings getting painted here, just because, I do it to all of them, so I don't want to be repetitive here. But pay attention to the edges. They were a very dark laser cut kind of look, so I wanted to really get the edges white. So I'm paying special attention to the edges. And we cover the center with paper, but I like to go ahead and gesso it because I feel like it preps it for glue and it holds better. So once you have your wings and everything painted with gesso, all you're going to do is trace the design onto the paper you want. And I'm using that same number 2 pencil, so I just trace it on there, and I'm going to cut that out. So you do a little bit of cutting, but not much. These are very easy shapes, no intricate fussy cutting really going on here. So I'm just going all the way around and cutting out my wing shape. And I'm just using the scissors because they were right there in front of me instead of my distress tool, and I am just going all the way around and distressing the edges and really manipulating that paper because I want some of it to kind of curl up and that white to show underneath. So I'm really giving it a good heavy distressing. And the planner glue pins, okay, these are for the planners ideally, but they're amazing. I'm so in love with these glue sticks. I've never had a glue stick that was very strong, and these are amazing. It's one of my favorite new items. So I'm going to be using that to adhere down all my paper. Now I'm grabbing the other set of wings that I covered, and I am using the Art Alchemy Vintage Rose colored paint to do the edges here, and the gesso just primed it to where that pink is showing up, a very true pink. If we did it on top of that wood, it would be kind of darker and wouldn't quite look right. So I'm just going around the edges with my finger. Sometimes I find your hands are your best tools, so that's what I'm using here. And by the way, I decided to do a voiceover on this because I just feel like it's more personal and I miss doing the live shows. So I feel like I can kind of talk to y'all more this way. Let me know if you like it better this way or if you prefer to just have captions. Okay, so when you're doing the ornaments themselves, right here I'm just cutting the background, but here you'll see me drawing. I'm tracing the entire ornament and the inside circle. You'll kind of see how all of these pieces, it'll all make sense in a minute, but you just, draw around it with your pencil and then you're just going to cut that out, okay? So you can do that with every one of your ornaments. I have the heart one and I have this one. This one is being made into a shaker, so that right there is going to be the background for it. And you're going to need to cut another piece to cover the top. And then we're also going to have to cut a piece of acetate as well to make our shaker element. So you just see me like tracing like crazy here and cutting them out. And it'll all make sense as you see me start piecing this ornament together. But it's very easy. This is not a very intricate design, so it's easy to cut out. And if you don't like to cut things, or you know, you can totally skip the paper and just paint and stamp and do whatever you want to do to it. So I'm cutting all of my little elements out here. I love this paper line. It is just so beautiful. I did traditional colors on a couple of the ornaments and some I didn't. So that's going to be the back of that ornament, and it's going to be the setting for my shaker. So it's going to get kind of covered up. So I'm just using that glue stick and adding that to the back of the ornament and making sure there's no edges that are seeping out, and if they are, I'll just trim them away. But yep. That glue stick is super heavy duty. So now I'm going to go ahead and cover up the back and get it prepped and ready to go, because you know things spin around on your tree, so you want to make sure that everything is covered front to back. So now I'm going to add that back piece on there, and that's going to be the back of our ornament, which is pretty enough just as it is. Okay. And then I always use a paper towel to kind of get the excess glue from the edges, and that planner glue pen is really strong glue. Like I'm using it to do shaker elements, so it's pretty heavy. So now I'm grabbing one of the rub-ons from the new Christmas Christine Adolph rub-ons, the adhesive ones, and they're so pretty. This one just says December 25th, and it says Merry Christmas. So I'm just eyeballing it and trying to get it centered in there, not being perfect at all. And I'm just going to use my finger to burnish the edges. I couldn't find the popsicle stick, so I'm just pushing it down with my fingers really quickly. Then I'm going to peel it up, and then I'm going to add some of that gorgeous metallic foil from Prima. This foil is like my favorite, and I'm saving all those negatives like I just pointed at because I'm going to use that on a project coming up, so I wanted to point that out. The negatives just create beautiful, beautiful little pieces to use. So I'm just rubbing with my finger again and just pulling it off, and boom, it was perfect the first time. I didn't even have to do anything else. Okay, so I've got some acetate here. This is from packaging. It's from an old die package from Prima. So I'm just tracing my circle right here from my ornament all the way around. And this is just, it wipes right off, but it gives me, you know, my shape that I need to cut out. So I'm just going to cut that out, and it's got a few scratches on it, but it's not a big deal. Ideally, you may want to use a acetate that is blemish free. Alright, so we're going to glue it right on top of there, but first we're going to add our shaker elements. So I'm using silver micro beads, which I love. I'm using some of the sequins from the Memory Hardware line. I love them. And I think I went in, and I may not show it on camera, but I added a few pearl bits that were left over. So to glue the acetate, I did use 3D matte gel instead of the glue pen because I really don't want any of the, you know, shaker elements to fall out. And the glue pen probably would have worked, but I didn't want to risk it. So I'm just going in with 3D matte gel here, giving myself a nice thick layer without too much. You don't really want it seeping in because it's going to make the shaker elements adhere to it. And then you see there I kind of dropped the acetate, so I'm just giving it a quick clean off and then just lining it up and pushing it on there. And I'm going to use a little rag that I have to kind of push and get any excess away. And then I'm going to use paper clips to push down where I need them to and kind of hold that acetate in place, and it will glue much more firmly this way. It's a little trick I have to use paper clips to kind of hold things in place while they're drying. Okay, now I've got the heart here, and I'm using another one of the polka dot sheets that I love from the Sweet Peppermint. You can see here the non-classic colors, which I love. So we're just going to cut that out, cutting our little heart pieces out. Same thing, you just, you know, trace it with a number 2 pencil or whatever you have on hand. I prefer to use pencil just in case you need to erase something. But when I do draw things and I trace them to cut them, I cut them a little bit inside of that line, and that gives me a pretty spot on cut. So to decorate the inside edges and the outside edges of this heart, I wanted to use some of the foil and really make it metallic looking. So I'm using that planar glue pen, and then I'm patting it with my finger to make sure that it's nice and even. I'm going to go in with the foil here and just start adding it in. I'm cutting it into pieces so it's easier to manage, but I am just adding it in there all the way around using just some little random scrap pieces that have been used on other projects, but it all works out. So I'm just kind of lining it up in there, and I'm going to go all the way around. The planar glue pen works great for this. You do want to let it set for maybe a minute or two before you pull it up, and then you get a really good adhesion. The double-sided tape, the Artisan tape, would work great for this as well, but I'm obsessed with the glue pens right now, so that's what I'm using. Okay, so then you're just going to start pulling it off, and you can see there on the strips to the side that you can see that big huge line going down where it adhered there. And then you can just kind of go, if you have any spots that are still tacky, and just kind of push the foil on there and make sure everything is nice and perfectly covered. And you can see that metallic sheen coming through. It's so pretty. And we're going to do the same thing to the outside edge as well. But this is just a really fun way to add some extra shine to your ornaments. So that's what we have so far. Now we're going to do the exact same thing on the outside edge. Just lining it up there and going all the way over it with our glue pen and then the foil. So same process. It's so easy to do. I love it. And I'm kind of using that to wrap around the inside and make sure everything's nice and covered with that foil. It's just such a fun technique. I love using it. So that is the outside part. Now we're going to add some paints of different colors. I'm going to use this heavy gesso. I'm going to use some of that Art Alchemy Vintage Rose paint and my favorite color bloom too, which is the Dragonfly color. So I'm just using my fingers again, and I'm just tapping randomly some gesso all throughout. And I know I've sped up the video for time reasons, but hopefully you guys can see the shine there on that ornament. It's really pretty. So now I'm just going to use a paintbrush and add a little bit of the Vintage Rose in there, just randomly. I was trying to get it to zoom in, but the focus was kind of a little wonky there. So I am just dabbing with my finger the excess off and just adding it on the inside and outside. And then for the blue, I didn't want to just put color bloom because I felt like it would kind of rub away. So you'll see me in a second mix a little bit of gesso into that blue color bloom, and that ended up working out perfectly for me. It made like my own little custom paint. And then I know it's not going to go anywhere. So that is what we're doing here, just adding that blue paint. And I just love making Christmas ornaments, and this paper collection is just so perfect. The shaker one you'll see is more traditional, but the heart one is definitely not. Alright, now I'm going to add my paper on top. You want to make sure you do the foiling before you add your paper elements. That is going to be the back side of the ornament, but I wanted it to look pretty too, so I try my best to make sure no matter which way it turns on the tree, it looks pretty. So I had a little bit seeping out around the edge, so I'm just cutting that excess off. It's very easy to do. And now I'm going to add the little top part there as well. You have holes on the bottom and holes on the top, and I forgot to punch it out with my crocodile, so you want to make sure you can use scissors to do so. Just, you know, get your holes going, because that's what you're going to use to add your hangers. I've got some scrap paper here, and I'm going to use the Snowglobe stamp set. Now this is a stamp and die set, and I love it so much. You're going to see me, though, I'm a fussy cutter, okay? I know those of you who don't like fussy cutting, this is right up your alley. These stamps are so beautiful, and every single one of them has a die that matches it. You can see them right there. But I don't know, I prefer to fussy cut. It's quicker for me. I love to fussy cut, so you'll see me stamp them, and then instead of die cutting them, I just fussy cut them out. I didn't want to lug my big shot over there to the table. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to use the scrap paper. This is why I always save scraps, because these little stamps are tiny and the little scrap paper is perfect for that. So I'm just going all the way around here and stamping snowflakes and the little houses and whatnot. I'm not using a block, I'm just using my finger to stamp them. And there's the snowflakes, and I'm just going to fussy cut them out. I fussy cut really quickly, so I did not use the dies, and I'm sorry that I didn't showcase that. But you know, you just line them up, put a little strip of washi tape, and then cut it out. The cool thing is I could have done like a bunch of them at one time if I would have done it that way, but I didn't. So after I fussy cut them out, I went around the edges with some black ink. I ended up going in with the chalk edger in black, but right there I was just using what I had on hand. So even the snowflakes for me, it's just so quick and easy for me to fussy cut. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to fussy cut all of my elements out. Okay, I've also got some other little fussy cut cards. There's all kinds of goodies. You can see there I have them in the package. Whenever I get a collection, I usually just go to town fussy cutting. So I'm pulling my elements out. Those are some coordinating sweet peppermint flowers that are beautiful. Grabbing a black chalk edger and going around those edges because that big ink pad was just too cumbersome. That's why I love these chalk edgers, because you can really get some detail. You can really go around the edges very well. So that's what I'm doing there, just adding a nice border around it. Now I'm spritzing with that Dragonfly blue color bloom spray, and I wanted some depth. So some places I'm kind of, you know, dabbing with a paper towel, and then some I'm just leaving it directly on there so that it has, like, you know, darker and lighter hues. So I'm going to attach my wings now to the back, and I'm just going to use 3D gloss gel. It's a very heavy and strong adhesive. You'll always see me using the 3D matte gel or the 3D gloss gel to adhere elements now. I have completely strayed away from just about anything else, unless it's just paper. Like I'll use the glue pens, glue sticks, or you know, something lightweight like a double-sided tape. But for you want something to stay forever and be a strong adhesive, the 3D gels are your way to go. So I'm using the 3D gloss gel here and just lining it up and pushing it down and making sure it's even. I'm kind of using that bar in the center to measure it up. This is a chandelier pendant that I had left over from the relics line, and I am just going to bend the wire back, and we're going to add that to the bottom with the tassel that comes in the kit. In the Julie Nutting the ornament kit, you get the ornaments and some tassels and stuff, so I'm going to add that with it. So I'm painting it with that Vintage Rose acrylic paint from the Art Alchemy line. And then I'm going to go here with some sculpture medium and some of those Mulberry mica flakes. And I'm just adding a generous amount of that sculpture medium, and I'm just dabbing it with my finger. And then I'm just going to sprinkle the mica flakes right on top. And I love using the sculpture medium for this. It dries clear, and it just really holds well and adds extra dimension, so I just love it. So I'm making sure I don't have any excess, and then I'm just pouring it right on there. The only thing I do is I just kind of push around on the edges there and make sure it's all nice and lined up so you're retaining that beautiful shape of that pendant. And that is pretty much it for that. So I added some foam squares to the back of that little fussy cut piece, that little note card type thing that says "Let there be peace on earth," and I love it so much. So that's going to be our center point on this ornament. I'm going to use my 3D matte gel here to start adhering some elements. I've got one of those sweet peppermint flowers, and what I did is I added one of those Druzy stones that go with the sweet peppermint collection. They're so beautiful. So I added that to the center of that flower, and now I'm adhering my crown down and lining my little Julie Nutting mini doll up that I decided to add. I love these little mini dolls. They're just so cute to me. They come in wood, and I did prime her with clear gesso, but I do things all at once when I get the packaging, so that's why you didn't see me do it. So I'm just lining her up, making sure she's nice and adhered, and the crown is there, but it's not really on her head. It's just kind of in the background. So I'm going to start tucking in those little Snowglobe die cut, fussy cut pieces. I've got a little house, a little snowflake so far. The house I'm kind of tucking down into the flower there, just kind of coming out. It's got a little chimney and it's really cute. So I'm going to take some of those sequins from the Memory Hardware collection and just randomly add them just for some extra bling and shine. I'm just going all the way around and adding those beautiful sequins. I love them so much. They're really pretty. And that is what we have so far. Now I'm coloring the doll with my Prima markers. I'm not a professional colorer at all, but this is really easy to do for me. I used 3 colors, and I will have them in the supply list. It was an afterthought, so I don't know if it was on the blog supply list, but I'll put them down below in the supply list. So I'm using a couple of different colors just to color her skirt and her socks and her shoes and her hair. I made her hair pink. So she was nice and festive for the holidays. And then I'm going to color her little bow in a blue color that kind of matches that dragonfly blue. Okay, so that ornament is ready to go minus the pendant and the hanger, the ribbon part on the top. And I did add that Santa Claus piece kind of coming across the top like he was flying through the sky. I really love those Snowglobe stamp set. So you've got to get your hands on that one. Okay, so I'm just adding some last minute little snowflakes using that glue pen to do so. Okay, now I'm going to add my little pendant to the bottom, and all I do is bend the wire back. It's a pretty heavy gauge, and then I attach the little tassel just like that, and then I'm just going to push it through and then use my pliers to squeeze and tighten it to where nothing's falling off. And voila! All we got to do is add our attacher. Alright, so we're going on to the wing part here, and I have a mold. I use the paper clay, the IOD paper clay, and use one of my favorite Baroque molds. It's in the supply list. I love it so much. I'm going over it with just a really light coat of heavy white gesso. I go over everything with gesso just in case, but it really didn't need it. It would have taken the Artisan powders without the gesso. So I'm using the Rosewood Artisan powder. I had accidentally grabbed the lighter pink one, which was beautiful, but the Parisian Rosewood was the one that I wanted to go with on this one. So I'm using the little paint brushes that just got released that go with it, and they really do kind of grab that powder and really make it easy to pick up and then brush around. And I'm paying special attention to the edges. I don't want any white edges showing, so make sure you go all the way around. And it looks so pretty. And then I'm going to dab my finger in a little bit of that pink Art Alchemy paint and just highlight some of the raised areas, and it just gives some dimension and, you know, some added interest to that paper clay piece. These molds are amazing, and the new releases are even better. So I'm using an old Finnabair background stamp here, Music Notes. I don't even know if I know the name of it. I'm just going to call it Music Notes. I've had it forever. I use it all the time. And I'm using black chalk ink just to, you know, randomly stamp some music notes. So I flipped the wings over, and I'm going to use some masking tape. I do cover it with paper in the end, so it gets covered up. But I'm using masking tape and some 3D gloss gel to adhere my wings together. And I got a little crooked there on one of them, so when I flip it over, you can see me kind of trying to move it a little bit and get it nice and lined up. But it's okay, no big deal. And then when you add your paper clay element there, it's really going to help hold everything together. So the 3D gloss gel I'm being very liberal with, and it's going to really help hold those wings together once everything is dry. So I'm just pushing down and making sure it's attached. Alright, so we're going back to our shaker card now, and you can see that the 3D matte gel has dried. You don't see any of it. You can see that some of the sequins and beads stuck up top, and that's because that 3D matte gel seeped through. So I added the top part that we fussy cut out or traced and cut out. I added it on top. So you want to make sure you put your acetate on top of your shaker element before you add your top coat, because that's what's really going to cover that up. So I went around the edges with some 3D matte gel, and I am using some rhinestones to go all the way around my ornament here, and it looks so pretty. Really makes it look vintage and blingy and just really pretty for the shaker one. I really love using the rhinestone trims. So I'm using some little bits that I have left over, pieces that I've kind of cut up. I'm trying to make use of those. I like, some of them only have 2 or 3 rhinestones on them, but it worked out well. So I'm grabbing one of those metal embellishments from IOD. They're called metals for wood plaques, but they're amazing. I use them on everything. So again, I'm using the 3D matte gel to adhere it down. I want a really strong adhesive. I don't want this going anywhere. So I'm lining it up there on the bottom, and I'm adding a Druzy stone again to the center. I love using those Druzy stones. They're so pretty. Alright, I'm grabbing some chain, and again, I don't know the exact name of this off the top of my head, but it is in the supply list, so I'm adding that chain there in 2 different lengths. And I make my own jump rings. There are some jump rings that come in the Julie Nutting ornament kits, but I typically just use wire and go through the little edges of my chain, and then I'm going to go through at the edge of those plaque, those metals for the plaques right there, they have little holes through them, which is perfect for adding chain and other elements. I love that they did that. So you have those really ornate pieces, and then you also have holes for attaching even more goodies. So I'm using my pliers to really get a nice attachment there. And then I'm just going to go on the other side and do the exact same thing, making sure my chain is nice and straight. I don't want it to be all wonky and not match up correctly. So I'm adding the larger size on the bottom and the smaller size on the top, and just attaching it to the other side. Same thing I did on the other one. You just stick it through the hole and then twist it with your fingers and use pliers if you need to. And then I use my Tim Holtz scissors. They work great, but you could use wire cutters as well. So we've got our chain there, and it looks really pretty. Now we're going to change this red tassel that we had. I wanted to really, change the color. The red just kind of didn't suit my fancy. So I'm going over it with some heavy gesso first. We're going to do a couple of different mediums, but gesso is always our first step. And I didn't let these dry in between applications, which I should have, but I was kind of rushing it. That is the Wild Raspberry Color Bloom Spray, another one of the limited edition ones, and it's so pretty. And you can see me there kind of dragging it through. I'm going to add some of my favorite alcohol inks, one of them in Butterscotch, which is a very pretty brown, or that might have been Latte, I'm sorry y'all. It's one of the darker brown alcohol inks, and then I'm going to use the Cranberry alcohol ink as well. And it is a perfect red for Christmas. It's really pretty. So I'm just making sure I flip it and get nice even coverage all the way around. And once it's dry, it's going to look beautiful hanging there. I'm taking a scrap piece of paper from the Sweet Peppermint line, and I'm going to cut a little banner out. One sheet in the paper line just has all these little banner type links that you can cut out and use for all kinds of fun things. And this one says Jolly and Merry, so I'm trying to keep that in the center, and then I'm just going to do a fishtail cut on the end and use my planner glue pen again to just adhere it down. So I'm kind of playing with it, manipulating the shape and getting it how I want it to look and adhering it down. I love that he included those in the paper collection because I love adding little banners to things, cards and whatnot. It works perfectly. Okay, and I'm just using my scissors to kind of fluff up the edges there, make sure everything looks nice. Now, I've got some ribbon here. I think it's May Arts, I'm not quite sure, but I'm making a loop with my finger, and then I'm going to tie a little knot there, and then just tie a bow. And then we're going to adhere that to our ornament. That's how I did all of mine, but this one didn't have a hole to push it through. So this one I'm going to use the Artisan tape to adhere it down. I'm just going to do a couple of strips, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. It's kind of hard to explain, but we're just making a little loop for our ornaments. I'm trying to fishtail cut it with these scissors, and it wasn't quite working. So I opted for my Timmy scissors off camera because that just was not working for me. But just fishtail cuts kind of make your ribbon really look nice. So that is the shape that you're left with, and it looks really pretty. And now we're just going to add some Artisan tape to adhere down our edges of the bow. And then that wing one will be completely done. And those wings were left over from the shaker ornament because we didn't add them to that. So I'm just trying to optimize everything that came in the package. And this Artisan tape is like industrial strength. It's really heavy, so that is not going to move at all. It was perfect just the way it was. I did some tests to see if it was going to fall off, and it didn't. It was great. So you can see me having a little bit of trouble there trying to get my nice cut, but in the end it worked out. And we are almost done, y'all. Look here, I'm showing you the finished product. I haven't added the loops to that one yet, but I'm going to. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And you'll see pictures of the other ones that we were remaking, but not these ones, and see just how close we did. So thanks for watching. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas, and stay tuned for the next tutorial. Bye, y'all.